We back at the core studios. It's your man DJ G.
It's your boy Moses. Kingdom of Religion, KOR. We got a special guest today.
King Sheldon.
King Sheldon.
What's good, brother? You all right?
Everything is good. I'm glad to be here. Blessed to be here.
Thankful to have you. So you gave a session last Tuesday called Faith in Action.
Yeah.
Really good session. Let's get into it. So what kind of inspired that message?
So a little backstory, and you guys already know, but we're going to give this for the people. I had been going down to Franklin Park, and I had been giving back to the homeless and just listening to God and being obedient to his word. And I had went there one Sunday, and there was a gentleman that I met, and his name was Joshua. And there were people around, and they were, I was handing stuff out, and I could see him like kind of whispering in the back. I'm real candid with the guys out there, the guys and the ladies out there. And I was like, yo, what you whispering about? I was like, we don't keep secrets over here. And he was like, I was telling my man that I needed some boots in a very subtle voice, And I was like, what size do you wear? And he held up his hands, 2 5s as if he wore a size 10. And that day, I had some shoes I had some boots on that were in Italian sizes, so they kind of fit big. I wear 9, 9.5, and they probably fit like a 10, 10.5. And his size, just right on spot on his size. I knew they were his size, but these were European shoes, so they was, they were pretty penny.
So hold on. So let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
So you said what the boots were, fear of God, right?
Right, they were.
I know you're gonna get into that, but I'm not hip to that. I don't know what fear of God.
That's because you gotta come back outside, dude. You ain't outside no more.
So yeah, you saying Italian, but it was fear of God, right?
Yeah, fear of God. It's actually Jerry Lorenzo. He owns he started a clothing line called Fear of God. I believe he was like some sort of like creative director with Kanye.
Hold up. So I think I know. He do for Russell Westbrook, right?
Yeah.
All right. So
yes.
I know the brand. I seen it before then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's funny because I had started praying for the group of people that were right there. We were joined their hands, and as I completed the prayer, I looked up, and there was a young lady that wasn't originally in the circle, and she said, I had to make sure I had got back for the prayer. That was more important to me than anything that you were giving out. And she was the sister of Joshua, and she started pleading on his behalf and saying, yo, he doesn't have anything. That coat that you see he has on, I had to stand in line for him because he's so soft-spoken. He won't speak up for himself. He doesn't have a shirt on underneath that. He doesn't have this, that, and the third. And she was like, he really needs some boots. And in that very moment, I remember God speaking to me in a very clear voice and said, take off your boots and give it to him. And I had been working in construction, and I no longer work in construction, but I still had the old construction boots that I had from construction in my trunk. And I popped the trunk. They were some battered old Tim's battered boots. Shout out to Cameron. And they were as battered as they get. And she saw me pop my trunk and pull these boots out, and she's like, no, you're not about to give them. I was like, and she just saw me take off my boots and put my feet in the older boots. Wow. And she was like, no way, you're not about to give him those. And, I was like, well, tell him come over here. And she said, well, he's not going to come here. You have to go to him. I was like, well, we'll go walk over to him. And she began to cry as we walked over, and this fulfillment, this joy started to get into me. And I gave him the boots, and the soft-spoken guy in Joshua, he started expressing his gratitude. He started crying as well. I started crying, and it was like, this big, thing. Everybody out in the park was all looking like, that was huge. So I walked back over to my car, and there's a man named Daniel that's there. And Daniel tells me, he says, I had to see that happen because I know the word, but I had to see faith in action. And you just showed that. And that really stuck with me. And as I was driving off, I left not too long after that. I remember a voice in my head, and I believe it was the Lord. It was a question he asked. He's like, do you think you pleased God? And it shook me. It scared me. And I didn't want to answer it. And before I could even answer it in my own mind, in my consciousness, something said, don't be afraid to know that you've done what God wants you to do. And that was like faith in action for me. Like, I had to do that because anyone knows me, I was a pretty materialistic guy in my past life. And to give up those boots was like, yo, you.
I just had to look them up. These look like your speed though.
Yeah, they is.
I ain't gonna front. I can see you wearing this today.
Definitely. So yeah. So
Make
and
sure
that
you Google the right joints.
yeah, it was the military boot, the
Okay.
Fear of God
Yeah,
military
all
boot.
right.
If any listeners out there want to go ahead and check those out, yeah, those are my speed. But for right now, they belong to Joshua, and
That's
it's that was faith in action
That's
to me.
amazing.
Let's hope Joshua still got them joints.
Yeah. It's funny because I saw his sister not too long ago, and I said, she's like, yo, he's wearing those boots right now. So I think God knew exactly
Right,
what that was
and
going
that's the
to.
thing, when God's hand is on it, I mean, it's going to be blessed either way. So.
And definitely, I think it was bigger than just the act of you giving them those boots. It was for the people to see that, like,
Yeah.
you just took off the shoes that you came out here in.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you was dressed up how you be.
Yeah.
And you took those off as a part of your outfit and gave them to a man named Joshua.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
I mean, that's God's work, because I think, a lot of people that, have their complaints about the church, like, some of it is grounded in like, yo, when I need, help with my rent, or if I need, it's like everybody got like an encouraging word, and like I don't want an encouraging word. I want like bread in my hand. I want like, so I think the act of you being out there, taking off your boots to give to somebody else in need, I mean, that's amazing. I think that's literally like what our charge is to do. Like, we should be doing that type of stuff in the world.
Yeah, definitely, most definitely.
For sure. So with the session, you started. I know you started in the Old Testament. Let's get into that.
Okay. Alrighty. So in the Old Testament, I had did some research before.
Yeah, you had mentioned that. And you threw me off when you came with that. I was like, for real?
And it threw me off when I researched.
Well, were you there at the beginning? At the very beginning when he started?
I don't think Mo got this.
So, I mean, I'm going to tell him what he said. So, he starts out the session. He was like, if you look in the Old Testament, faith is only mentioned, like the word faith is only mentioned twice in the entire Old Testament. And I'm sitting there like, what type of Bible is that?
Yeah.
But then he broke it down.
So, according to ChristianBibleReference.org, the word faith is only brought up 2 times in the Old Testament. However, it is used 245 times in the New Testament via King James Version. And I thought that was an interesting fact. However, in the Old Testament, the word faith was only used twice, but there had been multiple accounts of faith being shown in action.
Yeah.
Right? And we've seen it with, Noah being obedient and building the ark, and Moses, going and freeing the people of Israel, and so many different, actions of faith, right? But the word is only used twice.
Gotcha.
And then all of a sudden in the New Testament, it's used 245 times, right? And I think that there's a clear line that with this new covenant that Jesus has made for us, that we have to have faith, right? That he's going to be strong where we're weak, or, deliver us from ourselves, So I think that's a big thing about that faith in action thing, and not seeing faith in the Old Testament as the word, but actually seeing it in action,
Yeah. They said, I know you led with Hebrew 11 and I remember hearing that in maybe a sermon or so, referred to as the Faith Hall of Fame, or the Hall of Faith, where it just mentions like all the accounts in history. And they mention Old Testament too, where they go through everybody and how, they were saved by their faith, or something happened because of their faith.
Yeah.
This happened. And you also spoke on like, I know we talked about it in one of the previous sessions, how God works, like, if you do this, then
right,
which is like, perfect for faith in action.
Yeah.
We take a step, and Mo gave a good analogy where he was saying like, people say like we meet God 50-50. Mo's like, really it's like 33 to 66%. Like we go 33%, God does all the rest.
Yeah, I agree.
But you had mentioned something. You said it was a good analogy, or how you phrased it was pretty good. You said like faith is like an actual substance.
Right. And I think that's what we'll talk about next, as far as, because what I also wanted us to kind of look at what the world looks at faith as, and then what does, God our Father look at faith as. Okay. And the Webster definition of it is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. However, the Bible defines it as faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1, the hall of faith, right? And it talks about God being able to use our faith that may be just the size of a mustard seed, but for that small amount of faith to do so much in his eyes, for him to use it. And the things unseen that we may not see, but God sees it as substance, right? But we can't see it. And I think I made an analogy to air, right? It's there. We're breathing it. We're consuming it. We're using it on a daily basis, but we can't necessarily, bring it into one jar, or it's all around us. It's not tangible, but it's there though,
right?
And I think faith is the same thing. It's all around us, but it's like, how are we using it? And it's like faith the size of a mustard seed can tell a mountain to be moved, and faith and mustard seed is such a small thing, but it says God uses it and he sees it as substance, and is able to use it in our lives. So I think that's it was amazing to kind of look at it like that,
I really like the I'm a fan of the Amplified. That's
I started reading that recently too,
because I love though like the brackets. So I was just looking the same the Hall of Fame, like the Hebrews 11, where it says now faith is, they use the word assurance. Faith is the assurance, and then in parentheses it says title deed or confirmation. So when you go back to those tangible things, like the title deed is what you get, like for a house. You buy a house, you get the deed. When you got the deed, you really got that thing. Like that's that substantive thing that shows, you know what I'm saying? So it's the faith is the assurance, the title deed of things hoped for, which are divinely guaranteed, and the evidence of things not seen, the conviction of their reality. And then it says faith comprehends as fact what cannot be experienced by the physical senses. And I think that alone is just like right on point, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not about the physical senses. It's divinely guaranteed. So it's like, I'm just trusting on that. I'm moving on that. Like I'm building the ark on that, and it hasn't even rained. Like
this hearing you even go through, like when you go through like technical definitions, worldly definitions, and you reference it back to scripture. Nature shows you that the Bible was preceded everything. You know what I'm saying? Like nature just confirms it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
like you're going over technical definitions of things, and it's like, that's what the Bible says. It just says it this way.
Yeah,
it's the standard. It's the only truth, bro. Like
no question. Well, so Shell, you had said you had mentioned, I forgot how you phrased the question, but it was to the point of like how we like exercising our faith.
Yeah.
Speak on that. I forgot what the actual question was that you asked though.
So and it was funny because I was going to interject it, but you ran right into that thought, which was about faith basically moves in an inverse relationship to logic, human logic, right? So to exercise faith, what we have to kind of do is go against our logical senses, And I think I can't exactly remember who in the session brought it up, but was speaking about Peter walking on water for a brief moment, and that makes.
I think it was Goldie.
I think it was Goldie. Yeah, so Goldie brought it up as far as even Peter walked on water. He didn't realize it because he was one with God in that sense. He had his eyes fixed on Jesus, but the moment he took his attention off and he realized the wind was swirling and the waves were crashing, logic started kicking in, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to be here," and he started to slip and fall, right? And I think that faith is a lot like that. It's like the moment we stop looking at logical sense, what makes sense logically, is when faith starts to work more in our favor. Yeah.
I think Black was the first one who had said something. He would say, like, what limits us sometimes is the fear.
Yeah.
And I think when he had said that, it sparked a thought in my mind where I was like, not just fear. Like we just start to reason everything out.
Yeah.
And that kind of prohibits us from acting in faith.
Yeah.
And it's logic takes over. You know what I'm saying? Like you start thinking like, well, if I do this, then I know on this side they're gonna be doing this.
Right.
And like we'll reason that for anything.
Right. That's why I remember like growing up hearing them, like them old people, those real prayer warriors, they would say like, I don't know how you're going to do it, but I know that you will. Yeah. And that's like taking away my logic. Like, you know, I know that this is how much money I make and this is what my bills are.
Right.
But I'm trusting that you're gonna make it happen. Like, and, you know what I'm saying?
So Proverbs, I was just reading it too. It might have been the night that it was Thursday night actually. I remember because I started a new Bible plan, and I think the first set of verses in that joint was Proverbs 3. I'm gonna get it wrong, but it was leaning not on your own understanding. You know what I'm saying? Like it says rely and trust confidently in the Lord.
Wow.
Like when you think about that, it's like so everything that you rationalize in your head, that you like, all right, I'm gonna make this move because this is my rational thought, this is my reason, and you think your reasoning is based off of what you've already experienced.
Right.
So if you're going off that, you're just gonna be going in circles. Like you're never gonna go ahead. You're always gonna be thinking like, all right, well, this worked for me last time, so I'm gonna do it this way.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
God is dynamic. He gonna operate how he sees fit.
Right. And I think that's the amazing part about faith. You know, it's like you have to let go of yourself and rely.
That's hard.
You know, it's funny. It's like almost like those faith building exercises that you may see being done at camps of like, you know, someone standing on a table in the group, you know,
fall back.
Yeah, like, and it's like funny, but it's funny, but God wants us to do that same thing, but spiritually though, right? Let go of the things that we're holding on to that in the physical realm we may say, well, God, this is how it works here, and we're trying to reason with the Creator of, you know, He's made this, so He's like, how you gonna tell me how I can work, you know? So I think that's amazing though.
One other thing that you had said was, I think you might have said it, but you were saying like to praise him beforehand. Yeah. You had mentioned that, right?
Yeah, I definitely said, I said that in faith building also, your praises should precede your blessings in the first place. So if you're asking something from God, that you should already react in a way that he's already done it for you. You know, a lot of the times when we praise him victoriously, like, and it's not that it hasn't even been done yet, he's like, that is the faith that I need to see, right? For me, for instance, it was I was dealing with legal issues, and I remember praising him like I had already won this legal battle. And I went into the courtroom, and, you know, the anxiety was taken away. And just like that, my lawyer just reached over and whispered in my ear, he's like, yeah, you can go home. It's been settled. It's done. Just like that. And it's like, yo, when I tell you, ever since then, I've said, yo, I have to praise before I even pray about it, because that's half the battle. It's like believing that God will do it. Praises precedes your prayers, and that you should believe that the victory is already there.
That was the next point that I wrote down from when you was leading. I put claim victory, like you said, to do it beforehand.
Yeah, you got to. I think I think it's important that we do that, because it's like when we remember who we serve, it's like as long as our will aligns with his will, it's not that we're asking something that's for self-righteousness, that's something that aligns with his will. He'll give it to us. You know, he's not going to withhold anything from us.
I always liken that to, being a sports person. It's like when you know you're going to win a game.
Confident.
You don't sweat a turnover. You don't sweat being down by 15. You like, yo, I know once we kick it in gear, we about to blow this team out. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like the same thing. Like when you operating in faith, knowing that the victory is already won, you move in that way where, you know, it's like, man, why he not tripping? Like,
right.
Why he not calling the timeout? Bro, we got this.
And, you know, what's funny is like every time we were talking about this during the actual session, it always brought back up that logical sense, the fear. That's what always plagues our mindset, that says, you know, you should be nervous right now. You should be worried. That's the enemy kind of trying to knock us off.
That's how you keep us stagnant. And then even like, you know what I'm saying? He just knocks us off track, and you just be like, I'm going to just stay in this little place.
Yeah.
Like no movement is not good.
Not at all. Yeah.
Sometimes. Another thing that I wrote down was it and this might have been my personal note, but I wrote down something like place yourself in position beforehand. Now, was that from you or did I just come up with that?
You had to come up with that. I don't have this in my notes. I don't have that in my notes.
I think that's where I was going with the whole claiming victory is like you start operating as if you already won.
Right, yeah.
Pastor Greg, I'm so thankful that you invited him out and he came out. He had said something too, because he was, remember, I don't know if y'all remember when he was saying like, he was like, I don't know, he was like just looking at being in this room and just looking at everybody, like everybody's like in some place in their life, they're in the wilderness.
Yeah.
He was like, you just got to realize, when he said it, it was like so profound. He was like, you got to realize like when you're in that wilderness, you're right there next to the breakthrough. Like,
yeah, you
should be really praising in the wilderness because without that part, like there is no breakthrough.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah.
And then, Tim was like, yo, like if you going through life and it ain't nothing bothering you, you're not effective.
Right.
Tebow jumped in. I was like,
that's putting it mildly the way
I think
you ain't nothing slow.
It's funny because that's exactly like I remember how the session going after he said that and pinpointing the fact of how close the Israelites were to their promised land. But because they weren't waiting faithfully, they weren't waiting the way that God was pleasing unto God. It took them 40 years, and that says a lot to us in our own faith. How close are we to what we're asking God for? Some of us, we're right there. But because we're not reacting in the way that he wants us to, it's prolonging us from getting to that promise.
Yeah, that's one of the one thing that's been eye-opening to me that I came across probably earlier this year, but just about patience and how it's not like the ability of the wait. They like, that's the easy part. Everybody got the ability to wait. Sometimes you can't do nothing but wait.
Right.
But it's how you operate, how you wait. It's more to do with that. So I think it's right in line with this faith thing, like, or even the praising before the breakthrough. It's like, if you, grumbling, about your situation and this, that, and other, like you actually are probably taking steps backwards. If you want to push through, it comes with that. Oh, I'm trusting confidently in what's to come, and I'm praising him for what's to come. Like,
Yeah. I always look at like the wilderness specifically as like the pruning process. Like,
wow,
you spoke on it, and I was just like, I don't know, I was smiling when you was saying it, how you was talking about, like the financial peace class and how going through that, it's like nothing makes sense, but you just moving on faith, like you're just doing it because this is what God has for you. And I was like, and like when you were speaking, you were saying like, like you're into fashion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if he gives you the money that you want right now, where is it going? Is it going towards that or is it going towards your closet?
Right.
Some more Fear God boots. Season
right.
Run it up.
You know what I'm saying? It's that pruning process. Like the same thing that I was going through. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember when I came back to y'all class, I was saying like, I remember growing up, like when I was making minimum wage, I was always just trying to show that I had, you know what I'm saying? Like, let me buy everything to make it look like you know what I'm saying? But then like, fast forward to where we are now, it's like I'm the complete opposite.
Yeah,
it's like
can't get you to buy.
I can't afford these things that I couldn't afford back then, and I'm like, I'm not even interested, except for those 11s.
Right. Oh, you go ahead, them.
Hey, they got the full 5 on the back.
Oh yeah, your knees down.
Hey, I told Shari, I said, look, I ain't really into it, but I wear 9.5.
Hey, look, bro.
So if they under the tree,
you gonna go hard in the paint trying to find those.
Oh,
no, they come out on Saturday.
No, I know,
but it's still gonna be tough.
I mean, depending on who you know.
Yeah, you know how that goes.
Look, and it's funny too, because Sheldon was talking about something. I'm gonna have these on ice. That's the exact thought I had.
I'm gonna
just hold these on.
I'm gonna ice them, right? It's funny because like that was the example of faith for me, faith in action for me that I was dealing with at the moment. Well, still dealing with is like being able to pay off all of my debt with the least amount of money that I've ever made since I've been working in my working adult life. And God is telling me, trust in me. You can do it, but through my strength, not through yours. And it just so happens that this financial peace class is taught by a God-loving, God-fearing man in Dave Ramsey. We got to give him a shout-out. And shout-out to Mr. Gordon, too, for facilitating the class, too.
For sure. We all graduates. Me and Mo graduated a couple years ago.
I might need some remedial classes.
No, I mean, even what you just said is still biblical, where you say,
refresher.
like, those who are faithful over a little. Like, you got a little right now.
Yeah.
You just making it way for later on. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
He was faithful over a little. you're gonna have a lot.
You get a lot in return. So and I think it makes sense too. Is like the world has conditioned me to think like this, right? That logic and like, oh, you got to do this, you got to show this, you have to. If you have money, you got to show it. And then God is like, yo, this is the complete opposite. You know, I need you to. This is how I need you to be a shepherd over this money that I'm going to give you, right? It's funny, yeah.
I feel like I had a part in how
you're
so fashion centric.
Oh, definitely. My man had all the shoes growing up. I was like, I need these.
We was growing up, this is before Sheldon was working at the commissary, so he didn't even have his own money. Yeah. You know, like with the whole. Well, Mo was actually the one who put me on the dunks way back.
Oh wow.
So then when I took
so you the culprit.
I need everybody to hear that because he definitely had more pairs than I did. But I think I started the way.
Right, and then I took it to the extreme. Even the Abercrombie jeans, we was like, Mo, why you wearing the white boy jeans? So like skinny jeans, Mo was on all that stuff beforehand.
Oh wow.
So then I remember like when Sheldon was young, like when I would see Sheldon at the family get together, next time I see him, he got on a pair of dunks. I'm like,
oh, this little boy. Yeah. No, I got a little cousin who's kind of similar the same way. He'll tell you, he was like, man, when I was young, I used to be like, Bo, I'm trying to get like that. I'm trying to get those. I'm like, bro, I'm not it. Like,
yeah, that's crazy.
Keep your eyes focused on the Lord, bro.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is like, can you imagine like what else we would have passed down had we, come
stayed
together.
On that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like, yo, you never
for better
know.
or worse, right? Like, imagine we stay on that path, what we passing down. But now think of it this way: like, where we at now, what we passing down.
Exactly.
That's the greatest thing about it.
Having
children is literally a do over.
Yeah,
like, it is. I get to teach you at an early age everything that
I didn't know. Definitely.
Like, you just set them up to be. Great,
better, yeah.
Definitely.
You had asked a question, and I don't know if we really got to it in the room about was there a time when you didn't act on faith and you kind of took things in you remember the question?
I remember that question. So it was a question about, did God give you a chance to act on faith and you didn't act on faith, and what was the outcome of that? And I actually ended up speaking on that, and I don't know if anybody else got to there.
I think we kind of like breezed over it. The conversation just went.
It just kept going. Yeah, and what I told him, it was like, so I was I had my Series 7 I still have my Series 7 and 63 licenses. I was working at so Series 7 and 63 licenses. Yeah, I'm a stockbroker, investment consultant. And I was working for a company, and they were in the midst of a takeover. They got bought out by another company, and I remember, I was dealing with some legal issues, and I remember the whole the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission. They were coming in to audit the branch. Out of 500 branches, they're coming to my branch, and God was telling me, stay put. Do not go anywhere. Wow. I will handle this situation. Raise your faith. Remember who I am. Remember who you are serving. And I remember they gave me a questionnaire. This is before the auditor had even come into our office. And my supervisor had given me the questionnaire to kind of just say yes, no, or whatnot. And one of the questions were, have you ever been convicted of this and that and the third? And I was like, God, do you see this question? How am I supposed to answer this? Am I supposed to lie? What am I supposed to do? And I freaked out. My supervisor, he went in the bathroom for about 5 minutes. I took a notepad. I wrote a quick, thank you resignation letter, and was like, I grabbed my belongings, left the key on the desk, and I skedaddled. Wow. I got out of there.
Did you ever hear from them again?
As soon as I left, I'm on the train, and my supervisor is like, where did you go? Whatever's happening, we could have, we could have worked through this. Where are you at? What's going on? And as I'm on the train, and I remember God telling me, do you not have faith in me? Mm-hmm. Why didn't you stay? I was going to take care of that whole entire. I was going to do it for you and turn to a testimony, but you didn't pass the test. Yeah. And end result of that, I had to go through. I was working the worst jobs. those battered construction boots. Want to know how they got battered? I put them to work. So
old Tim, battered boots. Them joints was Fresh Butters when you first got.
Yeah, so it was. Fresh Butters. The tongue was still stiff. Now the tongue was flapping underneath the sole. So it's like,
remember when that was the style? You had to tuck the tongue under.
Yeah.
Back in like 96, 97.
Silver tab jeans.
So that was my example of like not being obedient and not trusting, because I knew for a fact, I was like, yo, no matter what, I'm gonna be good, right. But logic started to kick in, like, yo, you say yes, they're gonna ask you, they're gonna take your licenses, you never know what's gonna happen for that. So I should have. I always look back at. I don't regret it, but I always look back and was like, yo, I wish I just would have had more faith the size of a mustard seed. Yeah. There, I took my mustard seed, I planted, I rolled out. I was like, yo, no way. There's no way that this works like this. But God said otherwise,
Yeah, when you hear his voice, if he was telling you, because that's one thing I think I've gone off track like that in those moments where it's like, because when logic set in and you like, well, the only way I'm gonna get through this is to lie on this paper, so I'm gonna go ahead and lie. It's like now you out of bounds. You like they don't got that covering no more.
Exactly.
You know that's not what he would have you do. Right. He might bring you to that moment and it don't make sense. It's like, yo, I gotta be honest, so I'm gonna be honest and then deal with the fallout. You know what I'm saying? And then it don't even be no fallout.
Right.
He finds some other way to, you know what I'm saying? Right. Like it's like we put him in this box of like he can't defy logic, and it's like, son, he could do anything. Defies logic every day.
Anything.
I was gonna say that reminded me of like I remember like back in the day, like filling out job applications. They always ask you your experience, and I used to like Google resumes. I'd be like, man, I'm about to just Google this resume.
Allegedly, that's not something like we'll know who listens.
Hey, matter of fact, I was probably asking Jeeves back then. Right. I'm pulling up resumes. I'm like, well, COBOL. I'm like, software languages. I'm just putting them joints down on my resume, not thinking like, all right, this is what they want to see in order for me to get in the door. Right. Lying about it, and then you get to the interview and they asking you like, man, what is that?
Right,
so it's on your resume. And it's just like, you know what I'm saying? Like when you try to when you put your hands on things, you try to manipulate it in your favor. Like you're gonna run into a dead end. Because if it does work, you'll always try that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
and then as opposed to saying like going into the interview with not much experience and having that on there, and then they're like, all right, well, opportunity might come up and be like, yeah, well, we see that you don't have experience, but we like your attitude. Yeah. And now we're going to work with
integrity.
You. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get a lot of people in here who just put whatever on here, but we like the fact that you're honest and then you're like, oh, that's God. Like, that's how God works. That's
exactly.
How he just intervened in this situation.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Did you have any other, I know you had some other questions from this session, but did you want to talk through them or?
Well, one of the questions that I was trying to get to also was, if somebody did deal with something that, that God was asking them to do, did it make any logical sense? And the thing that I was asking, it didn't make any logical sense at all. But like Moses said, like Mo said, we're putting our God in this box that says that he cannot defy logic. And it's funny because today Pastor Greg was speaking about, about how the walls could not contain Jesus and that that when he had appeared in the upper room that, he just appeared, the door didn't open, he was just there. Yeah. And it's like, our God that we serve is not confined by these worldly things that we see a wall, we think, you're trapped there, but that's not the realm that he dwells in. He exists outside of that. He controls that. So, most of the things that we're dealing with don't make any logical sense. And, it's just a test to our faith that we have to, put it in action, trust. And just like you say, I don't know how he's going to do it, but I know it will be done, in his name, through his power.
I think that's the biggest thing. When you think like, no, I want to know how you going to do it, and then I'll decide if I want to get behind you. Yeah. It's like you got to start breaking down. You got to grow out of that. That's that baby that when you first come into, your walk, you might be on that, but he going to get you off of that.
Definitely.
No question.
Yeah.
I watched so back in the day, Elevation Church, Steve Furtick, young guy, but he said he had a sermon and he said, if it has to make sense, it's not faith.
Nah, yeah.
If it has to make sense, it's not faith. And like, little simple stuff like that, you can always take with you and be like, yo, I'm trying to make too much sense of this stuff.
Yeah.
Mo, did you have any other questions?
Not particularly. I mean, but I was actually at the session, so I'm trying to think about people that, what I'm saying, those that weren't there, like what they might want to hear or might want to, because I mean, a lot of times the power is in the testimony. I know we've already shared, or, Shell has shared a number of, personal experiences. I didn't know, if somebody had something for like that question that was posed about, when you didn't, or like you were told to operate like this way and you didn't. Well, I mean, Shell, I guess, shared his. Yeah. But I don't know.
I gave like a little quick. Remember, I told you it was like a real trivial experience.
I remember,
But I mean, I don't think it was trivial at all, though.
Nah, it was.
Well, I was talking about like patience. And how, like God shows you the things that you need to be working on, right? And when you get married, like those things get exposed like very fast. And one of the things that I was talking about was just patience with Shari. As far as like getting ready to leave and things like that. And I was saying like, like we may have to go somewhere, right? And she'll say like, I got to go run out real quick and I'll be right back. And knowing what time we got to leave. And I'll be sitting there like on my phone, like just looking at the time, like time's going by. I'm like, yo, I want to text, like, where are you? But something's telling me don't text, like let her move. You know what I'm saying? But I'm getting impatient.
Right.
And then I'll send a text. And, you're not sending it like with no smileys. You like, where you at?
Like all caps.
Right, all caps. Where you at? Exclamation. Wow. Send. And as soon as you hit send, the garage door's opening up and she pulling in. I'm like, man, I ain't even have to send that text.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like just
like twice being disappointed because that when you said something was telling you that's that soft, subtle voice of the Holy Spirit, and it's like it's so hard sometimes, like because your flesh is like, no, you gotta go. Like, we're gonna be late again. It's hard. I've never had that work out well. When that little voice is said to do something, I'm like, nah, I can't do it. Like,
I was just talking sorry about that. Like God sends you all the warning signs, right? Like He tells you, like, all right, this is it. This is the warning sign, and you just be like, man, that sign ain't big enough.
I got you next time.
Right. I'm gonna go ahead and take this L real quick. But Shell, if you didn't have anything else, what's like or did you have anything else that you want to get into?
The only thing else that it was a question that I don't think that was even answered by myself also, but was, we're coming to the end of the year, and what was some things that, God is calling you to raise your faith on in this new season that we're getting ready to enter in. And I didn't even get to answer that. Well, I think I kind of touched on it, but I didn't necessarily get to go in. And I know, there were so many different, conversations that were going on. I don't think that the group ended up getting to touch on it either.
Ran out of time.
Yeah, we ran out of time.
But what was that situation? Did you have one?
Yeah, actually, so for my legal issues, they're coming to an end in the new year, in the beginning of the new year, and it's like God is preparing me, to get back
next phase,
and then also being creative, being productive, being used, and not stop, this momentum that He's given me. So, and it's funny because it's like when you're on probation, I don't know if anybody else is dealing with this, but for me personally, it felt like it put a cap on me, what I could do, what I was allowed to do, what I could, go out, and it's false. That was like the enemy trying to take, my peace away, but God has shown me otherwise. So I've started, going out to Franklin Park, giving back to homeless, and God is telling me, well, start the work first before you formalize it. Don't even worry about the 403B and all that and all that other technical stuff. Just start the work first. I'll give you the vision. I'll give you the name. I'll give you all that good stuff that goes along with it. So that's like another thing that I'm dealing with in this next season that I'm entering in. And, just getting back, I'm paying off all my debt with the least amount of money I'm making in my life. So, getting a better, getting my foot back in the door in that career field that I was in. So, that's one of the things that, God is calling me to raise my faith. It can be done. Not only will it can be done, it will be done in His name, in His power, for His glory.
Claim victory.
Claim it. I already know it, so I can't wait to recap it and come back and say, yo, you remember that faith in action we did 2018, 2019? This the action portion of it. This is what happened. So I'm claiming it.
how we normally close. You got like a 2-minute summary or a 2-minute takeaway that we could all take home, apply.
Yeah. All right. So faith in action, what it looks like is defies logic. Your praises proceed your breakthroughs. You should be waiting a certain way. You shouldn't be waiting, mumbling and groaning. You should be doing what God wants you to do. In that patience piece of waiting properly, you should always, have a good attitude while you're doing it. And sometimes, it may get tough, but those are tests. And God has given you every resource that you need to pass them. So it's like rely on Him, and do it unsettling, until He's gotten you to that promise that He's given you. So, His word says He cannot lie. If we rely on Him, then all the things that we desire, as long as they align with His will, we'll have those things.
Amen.
I would say one thing is, as you were talking, and just sparked the thought, is like being okay being uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like, just be okay with that. Just
getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah, man.
I heard, and we can close with this, but I heard another sermon or message that said, like you said, waiting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? While you're waiting, but they said to look at it a little differently. Waiting as you would, like, if you were a server at a restaurant.
Right. Yeah.
But asking God, like, how could I wait? You know what I'm saying? Like, how could I serve you? How could I serve you? So while you're in the midst of waiting, you're asking God, like, in this moment, how can I serve you?
Yeah, hands out, not like give me, but like,
no,
can I give back to you while I'm waiting on what you're
that's
giving
honestly
me.
exactly what you're doing with the whole homeless thing. So
yeah.
It's going to be a big 2019 for Sheldon.
Yeah, King Sheldon.
For sure.
So that's a wrap.
I'm excited for what's to come for you, bro. For real. Like,
yeah, man.
Indeed,
I appreciate it. I thank you for having me on here, man.
Indeed.
Live in the den, right?
Core
Studios.
Man, that was Big Ticker back in '95 with the 10, with the tongue,
with the tongue,
hey, with the original 11. But yeah, that's the wrap. Core Studios, Kingdom Over Religion.
Yeah, and we always close out with that Proverbs 25:2.
Yep.
It is the glory to God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings is to search out a matter. So keep seeking.
Keep seeking.
Seeking.
That's the wrap.
Yeah, man.
Peace.